Good evening, everybody. It's 6 p.m. on Tuesday, March 11th, 2025, and I'm so glad to welcome everybody to the Groton Board of Education's regular Policy Committee meeting for March 2025. I note that our members, Andrea Ackerman and Ian Thomas are here. Our chair, Bev Washington, is here. Superintendent Susan Austin. Ray Engel, our business manager or director of finance, I'm not quite sure which or both terms, and of course the inimitable Kate, who is going to see that we are saved for posterity. So the meeting is called to order. I'll start with a review of the minutes. Let me start first. Is there anything of crisis nature that needs to be dealt with before we start the regular business? Hearing nothing. We'll start with the minutes of the meeting of Monday, February 24th. Is there anybody who'd like to make any corrections, additions, deletions? Hearing no comments, I'll invite a motion.
Moved.
What are we moving, Andrea?
We want
to move the minutes? Okay.
Those minutes that you just said.
Okay, understood. Do I have a second?
Second, Thomas.
Thank you. Okay, is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll ask for all those in favor to please indicate by saying aye. Andrea?
Aye.
Sorry.
Okay, so it's 3 in favor, none opposed, none abstain. We're moving over to our agenda items for tonight. Our first item is a discussion on policy 3160, transfer of funds between budget functions. So I'll start out by inviting Andrea and Ian. Does either of you, or do both of you, have any comments you'd like to make on this?
I'm so sorry I didn't get home in time to review these first, but I have a lot of stuff here. And one of the things I have an arrow down to the third paragraph, and I say, you explain this to the public. And what do we have a superintendent for? And that's for, let's see, let me, if anybody else.
Let me just, for clarification, we got several versions in the packet, and I want to be sure we're all on the same page. I'm looking at the packet that none of them are dated. We'll talk about that later. I'm looking at the packet that is green type plus red barred type.
So that is your CAPE sample that has been just taken I believe it's just taken the sample probably with a couple other paragraphs from the committee.
I have a separate page with CAPE samples.
Right, I know, but I'm just saying when it's green like this, what we've done is this is the new language for the policy. The red is what's been stricken. Black is what we've had.
Well, there is no black. The first, to the best of my recollection, the first copy that we worked on back in November or December was black and green. And
right, and this has red at the bottom.
And that was the first version that we looked at. That was amended by us and went to the board and was sent back to us. I have what I believe, and this is the problem without having date lines on it. I think we're on another version now. Let me hold it up. Can you see this?
That's what's in our packet.
Well, no, I got 3 different ones in the packet.
Right, but that's the one that we had been working off of, I think.
Okay, so that's is that the one that you were talking about?
Yes, that's the one I'm referring to.
Andrea, was that the one you were referring to? Your third paragraph starts, the board may transfer any unexpended.
Right, but before that, now that I see this, look, if you look at the first one, it says the board looks to the central office to inform it of potential line item over expenditures. It's difficult for me to see this. All transfers of funds between the accounts of the budget shall be in harmony with the law and shall be approved by the, approved by the superintendent with board approval. I'm not sure what that means. So, and
Okay,
then,
good. So I'm just trying to find out that we're all working with the same document. That's all. So it appears that we are.
okay,
So I guess I should take some notes on your comments.
there's gonna be more.
Okay. Let me
Okay.
get some paper.
Yeah, Matthew, if I could jump in.
Yeah,
Please, please.
So this is one of those moments of I'm not sure exactly where this version came from, because what was passed out of the Budget Procedure Committee initially was the version that had like blue ink and green ink.
That's correct. That's
yeah.
the one I have here,
The blue ink one.
the blue ink one.
All right, so I could project that up. I mean, that's kind of like where again, I'm not sure where the green ink one came from. But it's my understanding that we're handling the stuff that was passed out of Budget Procedure Committee.
Ray, have
Um,
you seen any of these versions? I know you had forwarded the CABE version, which I always like to start with. We've always used CABE, and I don't know, I think you have some of the CABE language in the blue version too, Ian, it looks like, but not all of it.
Yeah.
It's got
I-
other
I-
language too.
The
Well,
reason
I mean,
I-
that was the whole point of the Budget Procedure Committee was Mike, Jen, and I, worked together to kind of come up with an amalgamation that was based loosely on CABE, but also modified to fit our what we felt was our particular
Right.
situation here.
And as you
in
know,
this
we have to
district.
go through policy to write policy, so that's
Right,
why we're trying
so-
to figure this all out.
I really don't want us to get into a argument about what we were doing and how we did it. Let's start with
We're
where
not
we are.
arguing, I'm just saying that that's why we've got these different versions, I think.
So I'm going to make a request to you, Susan. I have been begging for 3 years that every document that's going to be more than one time, that every single document have a date on it and whatever the title of the document is, and version 1, version 2. We spend here at every meeting and it's at cows and at regular meetings shuffling papers, trying to figure out which version we are and what page we're on. We've just got to be consistent.
Well, I know you work closely with Erica to make sure that that we get what we need.
You're not hearing me. I know you're listening, but you're not hearing me. We need to
Well,
have all documents with a date line on it to save everybody a lot of time.
Well, you know the date, it's in this packet.
No, it's not. The only thing that's on it is the dates on. I have 3 documents here. There's nothing on any of the documents that indicates the date of origin of the document. And what happens at our meetings again and again is that people are shuffling, trying to figure out which document they're on. The easiest way to deal with that, in my opinion, is to have every document carry a date 25/03/11, 2025, 3rd month, 11th date, version 1 or 2 or 3. Then when whoever is conducting whatever meeting it is, if there's any question about what we're doing, they can refer to a document by name. Everybody has the document. We stay on the same page and save an inordinate amount of time.
well, we
back
know
to
the document's name, it's P3160, transfer of funds between budget functions.
All 3 of these documents carry the same name, Susan. And
Well, no,
all 3 of
the one I'm
documents-
looking at says between categories and amendments.
But it's not dated, and they all say one thing or another. We can have that conversation later. I think we may need to have a policy on documentation, but that's not going to be for tonight. Okay,
so this is the one that's up here now. That we're considering. The one that I have is not the one, but,
It should be in the agenda packet, Andrea. Probably, but the order that I found them was the green ink, black ink, and then blue ink. So
It's
Why
Mine
don't
is
you put them side by side, Ian, so people could see the K version and the version that your committee came up with? Because people might like the K version, so you might want to see if you could put them side by side, so people could see what the difference is as you go along.
we did discuss that at the last meeting. We did this,
Yeah,
we
I mean,
did do this at the
Well, I
last
mean-
meeting.
Yeah,
Well,
But is this the one that's up now? Is that the one that we're supposed to be?
yes. So I'll tell you that the way that we did this is that the blue ink is cave language.
so,
but it's my understanding that the document that's in green is the document as a result of our working at our last working session, and that's as far as we got. And we ran out of time, and that we just rolled it over to the next meeting, which is now. And that the green, what is in green is I'm sorry, not Andrea's, is Erica's retyping or reformatting the work as far as we had gotten at the last meeting. Now, does that fit with your recollection, Susan, Andrea, and Ian?
Yes, we've seen these documents before.
Yeah.
But the
Well-
word board should be in parentheses after Board of Education. Because I see a lot of those mistakes.
And that was the document that we started with, and we're not on that document any longer. That doesn't mean we can't go back to it. We are now on the green document.
Right. And then after Board of Education should be in parentheses, the board.
It
Because
is on the
having-
green it is on the green document.
Where?
Could you put up the green document, Ian?
Yeah. Give me 1 second here. I'll get to it. I'll pull it up. Yeah. Okay. So now that we're talking about it, I'm looking at the two versions. I see what you're saying, Matthew, and I think that is correct. That the green ink version was where we were,
Why don't we
but
put
we
that
were
up?
by no means done.
No, we're not done, but let's put
Yeah.
up the green. And if we need to go back to the blue, we can always go back to the blue for language.
I mean, actually, I do like the first paragraph in the blue better because it basically mirrors exactly the first paragraph in the CAPE sample. And it basically says that all transfers of funds between accounts of the budget shall be in harmony with the law. And then that's the language in CAPE. We talked about that. And shall be recommended by the superintendent. And I think that's a much better paragraph than the one in the green.
Yeah, I
What do you
like,
think? What do you think, Ray?
Could we have the committee do its deliberations and get your input as we go? I'd rather have it be a committee meeting. That's our responsibility.
I'm just trying to help you out here, Matthew,
I know, but I'm trying to go from where we were.
especially if my name's on it. I want to know what I've got to do.
It's our name that's on this document. So
No, I'm saying I'm responsible for doing the work of this. So I've got to make sure that I've got this done right.
May I
so
go
then,
ahead? May I go ahead? We are now on the first paragraph where the last time we worked on this document, this is where I don't want to say ended up, it's where we suspended action. Andrea, you wanted to make a comment, or did you want to make a comment on the first paragraph?
well, I'm not sure which one, because the one I'm looking at is in black, not in green.
Can you see what's on the screen?
Yeah, and yeah, the one that I have that's in green is not, the board is not after as it appears there.
So this is the one that's on the screen. Could you enlarge it a little bit to make it easier? to
Yes,
read?
Sure.
I would ask that too. Thank you.
Okay. So
Okay,
the only difference that I see between what was in the blue and this one is that it has 3 words at the end with board approval, which I believe was the recommendation of the committee that
Well, it also says the other difference is that it's recommended by the superintendent.
All right. So it shall. Yeah. So
And then it's a
shall be
period, a
recommended by
cave.
the superintendent yeah. So that is another difference. Yes.
But Ray, what are your thoughts on with board approval in that first paragraph?
Sorry, I had to unmute. It's a little confusing. I would just say superintendent is recommending it for board approval. That's really what you're doing.
yeah, I agree.
So shall be recommended by the superintendent for board
Or
approval?
board approval.
Or board approval, right?
Okay,
Right,
that seems a reasonable edit.
That sounds fine.
yeah.
Pretty good typing skills there, Ian.
Getting a lot of
Better
practice
than
these
me.
days.
Better than me when people are watching. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so let's go to the second paragraph. The board will receive a written explanation of non-emergency transfers performed by the superintendent or designee for the previous month in the monthly budget and expense report.
And I think we saw a sample of that, Ray, didn't we, with when we had to convert over the funding for the nurses to the
Yes.
so that was actually he's done that.
Yeah, I
Yes.
provided that in the packet for with the request for the transfers, right?
Right. Yeah, so I mean, that's all consistent with policy and then, yeah, basically this is just kind of codifying what's been done.
Yep.
Yeah. So, no objections here from any committee members or administration?
Nope.
No, that's normal. That's normal process.
Okay.
So I do have some questions about the third paragraph. Does anybody else have questions? I'll hold mine till last.
We're on
Can
to
you-
the third now?
Yeah,
Okay.
can somebody read that out loud? It's very
Sure.
difficult for
The
me to read
board, can you blow it up a little bit more? I too am over 30.
that.
Well, that you're not alone.
The board may transfer any unexpended or uncontracted portion of any appropriation for school purposes to any other item of such itemized estimate.
Don't
Expenditures
do that. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Okay,
Expenditures in each fiscal year shall not exceed the appropriations made by the fiscal authority combined with such money as may be received from other sources for school purposes. Do either you, Andrea, or Ian have any comments for improving that?
I'll
No,
just as explanation, this also came part and parcel from the CABE language.
It did. It's
Yeah.
almost identical.
Yeah.
Hey, Susan, can you do me a favor? Can you explain that paragraph to me?
Let's have Ray explain it. So
Thanks.
we're not supposed to be transferring, except when it's for school purposes that, need that to happen. And I think in one of the other policies, we said in emergency situations, and that we can't exceed any appropriations made by the fiscal authority with the money as it's received.
and
And
who's
this is a
fiscal?
This is
The
a
fiscal
relatively new
authority.
paragraph that didn't come from the old versions. I know that.
I have some issues with this paragraph too, but Ian, you had something you wanted to say first?
Yeah, so if you go to the black ink draft in your agenda packet, basically that's what CABE had in their manual. And if you skim through it, you'll see there's 3 different versions of this policy. And one is extremely excessively stringent, and one is very loose, and the other is kind of a middle road. Long story short, the way I understand this paragraph, basically the first sentence says that the board, or via the superintendent, may transfer any unexpended or uncontracted portion of appropriation. So meaning like within the budget, money could be moved from one function code to another, or from one line item to another. With proper notice, like as explained before. Now the second sentence, expenditures, the total expenditures, I believe that means, in each fiscal year shall not exceed the appropriation made by the fiscal authority, meaning the town council and RTM, in our case. Combined with such money as may be received from other sources for school purposes. That phrase is the one that, was of much contention back during when we were talking about impact aid. But long story short, it comes down to the fact that, we get what we get at the end of the budget process from the town through the town council and RTM, and that's our cap on spending for the year. What happens within the budget from one function code to another, typically, yeah, there's not a lot of changes, but if there are, or if there needs to be, this is a policy that guides that process.
So I have a
Matthew,
que-
can I say something?
Sure, Bev.
Okay, I don't understand that first sentence, and maybe Ray can explain it to me as a business manager when it says other item of such itemized estimate. Can Ray
Basi-
explain that to me?
Could I break in, Bev,
Yeah,
because
basically, I look at that, like, for example, at the end of last fiscal year, we had about a $50,000 surplus that we transferred over into the non-lapsing account. And then we had the other 300,000 and change that we moved over into non-lapsing. I look at that in the same manner because we did not exceed the fiscal authority in the total dollar amount, but we did move that money into a different bucket. I mean, that's the way I look at it. And the same at the end of the fiscal year. If there are monies, and some districts will take funding from, let's say, function 1101 and move it to function 2130, let's say, because they're trying to balance each line. Some districts do that. That may be something we may want to consider down the road as part of the function with this once you get a full-time business manager. And we get training. There's a long list of things that need to be done before we're ready to move at that pace. But many districts will do what they call balancing transfers at the end of the fiscal year so that the different lines will zero out. The board will have to approve those transfers as well. So it's things like that do occur.
So let me share my concerns about this paragraph. Andrea asked for clarification on what it meant. Bev asked for clarification on what it meant. And one of the things that Andrea has taught us is that or at least I've learned from Andrea, is that sometimes less is more. I don't think that's policy whatsoever. I think that's a matter of statute. There's nothing in there that is a policy of our district. Everything in there, to me, appears to be a matter of law. Ray, am I correct or incorrect in that assumption, in that statement?
You could understand it that way, yes.
Okay. That being the case, I would like to offer a substitute to that paragraph, but let me recognize Andrea first.
Well, I have to turn off my timer and then you do yours and maybe whatever you're suggesting will address what I'm concerned about.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. So I would hypothetically relieve that, and we're now going to start with a single paragraph that will incorporate a line I'm going to add, plus most of the material that is in the subsequent paragraph.
Matthew, do you happen to have your recommended revision in a typed fashion?
No,
Okay.
that's a pretty straightforward answer.
Well, if you dictate it to me, I can type it up real quick and we
Okay.
just take a look at it on the board here. So
The
what do we?
superintendent, and this is a proposal, it may need some work. The superintendent shall provide notification of any transfer made under emergency circumstances to the board chair within 24 hours.
All right, hold there for a second.
This we're talking about our policy as opposed to state law now.
Well, it actually should be based on state law, though.
Everything we do should be based on state law, but there's
Right.
no need for us to repeat state law, and particularly when it results in our members who are pretty fluent in this stuff, not understanding what it's saying.
Okay, is that
Then we
your
would,
first sentence?
then we would add, we, there, in the next paragraph, the second sentence in the next paragraph starts, an emergency is defined as, and we would move that sentence right after the sentence I just gave you. Okay. The paragraph will now continue. The board will continue with what appears as the next paragraph, but I'm going to make one change or ask if we should make a change. The board shall provide a written explanation of of a transfer made under emergency circumstances to the town council and representative town
Miss.
meeting. It's not members, it's meeting, representative town meeting.
Meetings, yeah.
I'm not sure what happened there.
RTM.
Thank you.
My question on that line is whether we should put in a time frame or not. Maybe, you know, whether it's 2 minutes or 20 years, but, you know, maybe we should give them 4 or 5. We'll be busy if it's an emergency, so we don't want to have to put ourselves in a corner.
Why
Anyway,
don't you put it like as soon as possible?
very good. That sounds fine to me. Shall provide a written explanation of a transfer made under emergency circumstances as soon as possible to the town council and representative town meeting, RTM. Then we go on. Hang on one second. My eyesight is failing, so this is taking me a little bit. I think that's all we need to do for this. And then my only other question, and that is the line, this communication should promote a positive relationship. That is not a policy statement. That is a value statement. It's a,
Yeah, I was thinking that
so I
too.
think we
Yeah.
can just take it out.
That was.
It's not
part
that
of
we
my-
don't agree with it, but the more succinct we can be in our policies, the tighter we are. So
Yeah.
could you read that? Would you read that back, Ian, for everybody to hear?
Well, you got it on the screen there. I'm sorry, I'm looking at something else.
Okay, then can you
do you
blow it
mind
up a
reading it?
little bit more? My eyes are really not
I
working.
don't see it on the screen.
So I'm going to read this paragraph starting, the superintendent shall provide, one more time, see what you all think. Superintendent shall provide notification of any transfer made under emergency circumstances to the board chair within 24 hours. An emergency is defined as an urgent, sudden, and serious event or an unforeseen change in circumstances that necessitates immediate action to remedy harm or avert imminent danger to life, health, or property. The board shall provide a written explanation of a transfer made under emergency circumstances to the town council and representative town meeting as soon as possible. And that would be the end of the policy.
Yeah, I have 2 things. So this only applies to emergency things, but as I understand it, you know, if we let's say that 5 teachers retired and we didn't know that we had $500,000 that we didn't expect to have. I thought we could just move that to maybe supplies or whatever we needed. And that those funds could just be moved around. But is it different for an emergency? Is that like when the things went out at Fitch High School when there was flooding or whatever there was up there?
Well, you know, to be honest, like the problem with the way things happened with this, like the original Blue Ink draft was far more nuanced and kind of talked about the regular transfers and also emergency transfers.
So there is a difference between emergency and So what?
And
Yeah, that's-
actually,
I mean, because
Your
what's
blue-
really an emergency versus what's like a tending shortage that we want to compensate for, and that we anticipate an overage in another section that, we think we can ease the stress, by
And we
moving
could just-
something over there.
Yeah,
if,
well, we should move that, okay.
yeah,
so
like
your
this
blue
goes.
ink-
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
no, I
So-
want you to finish.
So
Oh no,
let me finish.
yeah.
One,
go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, Ian,
ahead,
are
Ian.
you done?
I'm sorry.
I want to let you finish.
Yeah, I am for
Okay.
now. I want to hear what
Susan.
Andrea has to say.
And Andrea.
My last question is that, do we always provide a written explanation to the town council and the town of the RTM?
It should be, I believe it's part of, what am I trying to say? The charter, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
Yeah.
then, okay, I'm all right with that then.
Yeah.
We were certainly letting them know constantly every month there was something new.
I know.
Right.
So,
And that
Um,
can dovetail nicely with the financial report, the monthly financial report.
Yeah.
so if it's part of the charter, I'm okay with it.
So
And if
in the,
it's different,
I'm sorry.
and if it's different from just moving monies around that we didn't know we had them, but now we need them over here. Right?
So I
So-
guess the question that I'm hearing, it wasn't articulated in this way, is does this policy need to discuss transfer of funds in non-emergency situations between budget categories? Do we need to articulate that?
I
I
believe-
would like to.
See, I interpret the first paragraph as that function. That's what I did this past week.
So,
Right.
Ray, what do you mean?
When we transferred to the nurses, to the non-lapsing account and to the oh God, the impact
DOD
aid account.
supplement.
Right.
You just
Uh-huh.
moved it around. Yeah,
We took it out of the budget because it was never in there. And we moved it over to the non-lapsing. We did a transfer there. Now, again, if I interpret this as also, if we're going to move money to a non-lapsing account at the end of the fiscal year, I need board approval to do that as well. I mean, I don't move money from one function to another without board approval, without written authority.
oh,
And that's
okay.
what I take the first two paragraphs. So if all three of them tell me that. I
Okay.
mean, I don't want to overcomplicate it, but I don't want to see you guys spinning your wheels saying the same thing 5 different ways either.
So can I-
Right. Thank you.
Ian, can I just add this? Because in your blue section, as I look at your blue, the board authorized the superintendent or his designee to transfer funds from any line item in the amount of less than 10,000 under emergency conditions, if there's
Yeah.
that urgent need. So that's the very same paragraph, just about as in this dark black cape original
Yes.
policy, which says the superintendent or his designee is authorized to transfer the funds, any line item in the amount less than 10,000 under emergency conditions. I don't know what happens if it's $11,000, what I do then, but, and then it says, under emergency conditions, if the urgent need for transfer prevents the board from meeting in a timely fashion to consider such transfers, all transfers made in such instances shall be announced at the regular scheduled meeting of the board, and a written explanation of such emergency transfers will be provided to the legislative bodies and municipality.
Right.
say
Which
for
in the Blue Ink
selectmen.
version, I changed to town council and RTM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that seems to, I don't know if we need the $10,000 limit, but that language to me seems pretty succinct as well.
Yeah, and that's actually something I would like to, I think that would be good to have as a finishing paragraph to this policy. Because as Ray identified, the first two paragraphs identifies like it's okay to, it's allowed to do under regular business as long as it's submitted for board approval.
Mhm.
And just for everybody's edification, the physical transfers are not done until I get that board approval. We just completed those transfers this past week. I
Right.
know it was like a week and a half ago you approved it, but we wanted to make sure we had all our eggs in a basket, and we will not transfer unless we know it's right and there's no issues with it.
Yeah. That's what I understand from the past.
Yeah.
What about
Um,
for this emergency situation though, Ray?
Um,
We got the newly suggested paragraph, and then there were two other paragraphs that were, there was the one in Cabe and then the one in blue.
in my prior life, we did that in Vernon. We had a boiler blow that we had to transfer some funds to get the deposit, and we had to move them out of some accounts over into a facilities account. And then we had to go for capital appropriations after that. But long story short, the superintendent was authorized to get and it was a $200,000 boiler. We had to come up with like 40,000 fast. And we had to put that down to get the boiler in. Long story short, the superintendent and the business office authorized the buy through notification electronically of the board that we were going to do that because it was the middle of winter, things had to get done. And for the safety of the kids, sometimes you can't delay something like that. So I understand. I think by putting a dollar limit on it, you might be tying the hands,
Yeah.
because if you can't hold an emergency session of the board, although today it's much easier than it was 6-8 years ago,
Right.
with Zoom and everything else. But you could call a Zoom session and do a virtual session.
right.
But
Well, yeah.
And state law allows, 24 hours notice to have that meeting,
yes,
so like, and,
Yeah.
and even less so if it's an emergency, like, under, like, there's qualifications in the FOI Act that allows for exigent emergencies that,
yeah, certain
you can,
safety provisions, things like that.
yeah.
So you've
So-
imported, Ian, you've imported the paragraph from the blue
Yes.
page. How do we meld
figured-
that? How do we meld that with what we've done so far?
Well, I would think, like, let's take it paragraph by paragraph. Everything that's in yellow is still in debate, as far as I recall. Like, we kind of got as far as, we're looking at the third paragraph as maybe possibly getting rid of the short one, the board may transfer, and replacing it with your proposed version, Matthew, the one above it. And
The difference
then,
though is, Ian, that the one above it is under emergency circumstances.
mhm.
So perhaps
Right.
perhaps we would like to raise the second highlighted paragraph above what is now the first highlighted paragraph, and the board may transfer any unexpended or contracted
Sorry, I just took it away from you.
non-emergency transfers. And we need to get language that in non-emergent situations, comma, the board will the board may transfer in non-emergent situations, the board may transfer any unexpended or uncontracted portion. Expenditures shall not exceed the appropriations in non-emergent, emergent situations.
So Matthew, in this paragraph, you're giving the board the board can do it without asking the superintendent? You're giving the board the full authority to do this.
No, that
without-
was not my intention.
But that's what it says, the board
Well,
might.
well, thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate that. The
I think the board should have full
the
authority.
board has the authority to do it. In non-emergent situations, I think the superintendent will propose to the board for board action to do it, and it is the board's responsibility in non-emergent situations to be responsible for it.
So there's one way to do it. The superintendent with board approval may transfer.
Now, Ray, is
Or-
that the situation like we did with the nurses, where we just make a list of things that needed to be transferred?
It'd be very similar, yeah. Again, I don't know, maybe I try to keep things too simple.
Because I think I have to be responsible for the how it gets done. That's why I keep asking these questions.
See, the
But I
above
thought
transfers are
we had-
non-emergency.
Yeah,
Yeah, the first two paragraphs are not an emergency, so that's why
Right.
I look at this paragraph as somewhat redundant. It's a
Mm.
non-emergent situation, the same as the first two. The first two are not emergencies. It's the normal business process of a transfer.
So maybe what we need to do is place maybe just
Okay.
one sentence into the first paragraph. Because to me, I'm reading the first paragraph. The Board of Education looks to Central Office Administration to inform it of potential line item over expenditures in each school year budget. So it seems like that leads into an action of making a transfer, and then so the next sentence says all transfers of funds between accounts of the budget shall be in harmony with law and shall be recommended by the superintendent for board approval. So maybe this part, this sentence could go in there like this.
And I don't think the first sentence is necessary. I think the second one that you just put there is good. Just,
I see the first sentence as kind of setting the table of, this may happen, and it's a matter of normal business. It's not, and it sort of sets the chain of event or the hierarchy, I guess, in the sense of like the board, we depend on central office administration to keep us apprised of it. We're not in there when it's not our job. We're overseeing and managing, helping assist. So a lot of time, it just sort of sets the roles and responsibilities very clearly. That's where I see the value of the first sentence.
Ray,
In the
comments?
second and third paragraph there, the board will receive, and then in non-emergent situations, they're both saying somewhat similar, in my eyes, similar.
Yeah, I think
Mm.
what comes next, the board will receive a written explanation of
Mhm.
transfers. That's the work that Ray just shared with you with the
Yep.
nurses. So I think that's fine to keep in, but then you say it again, non-emergent.
Right.
Do we really
situation.
need that next sentence?
No,
Well,
we
it-
don't.
This one that I'm
Yeah.
going to highlight.
Yeah,
Yeah, that one.
Right, do you really need it?
No, I think no, because that's the expenditures in each fiscal year shall exceed the appropriation made. That's law.
You are correct.
Yeah, so I think we could do away with that one.
For in non-emergency, put in a hyphen.
No,
Second,
Last sentence of the last paragraph.
the board
first
will
paragraph,
receive
okay.
Yep.
non-emergency. Okay.
can I ask one more thing? That second sentence, I think, Ian, that you just put up there, the superintendent with board approval may transfer. That sounds to me like, let's say there was an emergency. Well, let's say that Susan wanted to transfer something. It doesn't have to come to us first. Can she indicate that transfer and then it comes to the board?
well, I think that's a point of debate. I think I know, at least my understanding of hearing the board discuss it in different ways, different times. That a number of different members have different ideas about that.
Mhm. I thought that those things were done, and then it came to the board, and we say, yeah, that was a good thing, do that. Or we
Well-
say, hey, baby, hold
I-
on.
Right, similar to like the nurse situation, though. Like the superintendent and the business manager came to us with a set of proposed solutions to the problem. And then we reviewed it, discussed it, and voted on it because it was non-emergency, but it was, we're moving money, we're jumping function codes.
And that was a pretty
Um,
big deal, right, Ian? That was a,
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
this could be just also day-to-day kinds of things that, like you
right.
said, Andrea, you saved on a teacher and you need those funds instead for supplies or something.
Now,
If-
bear in mind, if
it
it's
is-
within the
if it
same
is a-
function,
If
Go
it
ahead,
is,
I'm sorry.
if you need supplies on an emergency basis, then go ahead and do it. If it's,
But that's not what this says.
you know.
Right.
Could we
And
What
I
were you
think,
saying,
take out
Ray?
the line, shall be in harmony with the law. Everything we do has to be in harmony with the law, or we're violating the law, so it's just redundant. And shorten the document, shorten that paragraph.
Matthew, why don't you take out that second sentence and that's it? Because like you said, all transfers of fund has to be in harmony with the law, so you really don't need that second sentence.
isn't that a CABE recommended sentence?
it is.
Yeah,
And I think that, again, it's just kind of setting the table,
Yeah.
explaining, the terms, definitions, the context of the situation.
one of the things with the CABE policies, they've all been
Mhm.
vetted by, there's probably half a dozen lawyers with CABE and CAPS when they go through, when they create these canned policies, so.
Right.
it-
And
it-
that's where sorry, go ahead.
no, please, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say that's where the phrase "in harmony with the law" comes from.
Yeah.
Comes from, and I think that's they want to do a tip of the hat to that
Yeah.
to show
And,
that we are considering it. I know
and
it seems
Floyd has
redundant.
looked at all
Good.
these policies for us.
How does the third sentence, all transfers of funds between accounts of the budget, or better yet, budget accounts, shall be recommended by the superintendent for board approval.
That's good.
Shall be,
Now,
you're to.
are you
shall-
both saying you want harmony of the law out?
Budget account of the budget shall be, of the budget through and deleted.
Andrea, you concur?
Can you take it out temporarily?
Yeah, I think it's redundant, but if Cave says, I thought it was dumb when I wrote it, but if the lawyers at Cave say, hey, you need to put that in, the big thing I'm concerned about is the superintendent does it and then it comes to us. But in harmony with the law or whatever, if the lawyers say that, I'm not a lawyer. That's, they must have had some kind of experience with this.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I'm thinking too. Is
Yeah.
shall be recommended for board approval. So
If that's the case, then why are you even messing with the K policy?
I don't know what you mean, Beverly.
Well, that's the thing is, Bev.
Why are you
Cave-
wordsmithing the K policy if you
well,
think
the K
they-
policy. I guess I'm using the phrasing coming out of there, but the K policy had 3 different versions of the same
They did.
policy,
You're
depending
right.
on like
They were
how
not clear.
stringent the board
They
wants
were-
to be.
But I was just looking at the policy in green that came in the packet, and that's the
Gotcha.
K.
Well, right. If you flip past that on the third page, the third version of 3160 is actually the CABE sample. It says in the upper left corner. And that actually, if you look at it, it has a version 1, version 2, version 3, all on that same sheet.
Right.
Mhm.
And if you turn over, so there's 3 different versions, and depending on how stringent the board wants to be with the administration, you can kind of choose a variation of any one. So all I was doing was trying to like kind of patch something together that kind of split the middle.
Yeah.
And but I used the CABE language as much as possible to try to save us time with Ray, or save us time with Floyd.
See,
Um,
thanks, Ian. Come on.
So
And
maybe
Beverly,
maybe I,
Beverly, where are you on this?
I said, right, that if you already like the K policy, just leave it to K policy, short and sweet and to the point. I mean, you keep wordsmithing and adding different things. I mean, is the K policy good or not good? And you already said it's been vetted by several lawyers and they think it's fine.
well, they have
Right,
three
but
different policies. They have three different
there's three
policies.
different versions of this
I
policy.
hear you saying that, but I'm just looking at the green one that we went over and that we came up with at the last meeting. Didn't Susan say Erica took all the stuff from the last meeting and came up with this policy?
I think she even watched us on TV.
My sense is, my sense is that there were some board members who wanted a more stringent oversight, fiscal oversight. And the issue that I heard mentioned, the question is, operations are the superintendent's responsibility. Policy is the board's responsibility, but in some situations, the two of them overlap. The one that came to mind in the discussion was in the question of reducing the hours of tutors, or I think it was tutors' hours, where it was an operational decision, but it also had policy impacts. And the idea was we could have avoided an uncomfortable evening for Susan, and we could have avoided an uncomfortable evening for the board by having it come to the board for that proposal to the board before it was operationalized. And so I think my reading of this is being proposed by some members, not all, as a way of giving the board some opportunity for input on situations. And of course, that depends on the superintendent, on any superintendent, discerning that there's an issue that involves both operations and policy. I don't know if I was clear or not. I'm doing the best.
That was very clear to me, Matthew. I think that was a great synopsis of the situation and kind of capturing the various feelings across the board. All puns intended.
Beverly, in terms of CABE language, sometimes it is just so obscure that I think that if we pull out the essential ones, phrases in there, and because sometimes it just goes on and it's, what did it say? And
Well,
you
where
know,
do we get the definition of emergency, for instance?
I
that in
believe
CABE?
that. I think that also came from CABE. But yeah, to Andrea's point though, that I also agree with that too. Like that, there are times CABE is so thoroughly vetted. Sometimes they tie themselves in linguistic knots
yes,
that makes it hard to unpack. And so, as a fellow English major, I think it's incumbent upon us to try to do what we can to make it an easier read, so it's more straight to the point in times where it does seem like we have a bit of a knot.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
I can live with shall be in harmony with the law, but I see no function that it provides because that is a matter of law. It is not a board policy.
Yeah.
So anything that's fuzzy was.
I could take it or leave it. If you want to do a quick straw poll and just
Andrea, what do you think?
yeah, I could take it or leave it.
Well,
so in that case, let's go with is it the
Well,
old
that's-
strunk and white? Avoid needless words.
Yeah.
let's.
What did Matthew say? Less is more.
That was your line. I adopted it. I'll give you credit for it.
Mhm.
All right.
I like
All right,
the
so-
first paragraph.
Yeah, I do. Too.
Yeah, I do too. I think we're there.
Yeah, I think so.
I just
All right.
don't know 24 hours if I've got an emergency and I can't get Bev and
Oh.
there's a flood at Fitch or the water bottles are bursting on the weekend. Or
Yeah.
how
Then
many
you would-
things went wrong last year? They were crazy things.
So
Sometimes I
well,
need
what
to
if
read
we
them
what
right
if we
away.
what if we broaden that out to not just the board chair but the board, and it's an email that you send out to the whole board.
Well,
that's
it's
a
the
good
within
idea.
24 hours. I don't even know. I mean, there were things that happened that we didn't know about right away.
Would 36 hours give you a bit, would give you more time?
I just think it, like you said, as soon as possible.
Yeah. Where, can you highlight that language, Matt, Ian?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that 24 hours is unreasonable. It's unrealistic.
So what is a reasonable number?
None.
As soon as possible. As soon as I know.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I mean what this is talking about is a transfer made to deal with emergency circumstance. I mean that it's not the emergency itself,
Oh, I see.
Susan,
right?
this
So
this is not for you. This is for the policy. We do not know who will be the superintendent in 6 or 8 years. And I think it is good to have a guideline as soon as possible. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If 24 hours is too short, is not enough for you, then let's specify 36 or 48. But let's specify something so your successor will have a very clear notion of what he or she is responsible for doing.
And what about immediately?
well, I mean, if an emergency happens,
Yeah.
it's going to go to the to facilities to the
They're
business
right
manager
back.
and the admin pretty fast as far as like, okay, we need to deal with this. And at the time that it seems like money has to be moved. If we may change it to just board, meaning like the superintendent could just send an email to the full board email and just say, hey, by the way, here's the update. I got to move this to handle this. Call me with any questions. Bye. That's it. Like I don't think it's unreasonable to say that's within 24 hours of handling of handling an emergency. I mean,
We send a
takes-
text message or a email to the board
right.
as rapidly as possible. But we need to define that, I think.
Yeah. 24 I think is good,
Ray,
but
Ray
36
says
could
you
work.
could put ASAP. He says you probably should just keep it like you did with the RTM as soon as possible.
Yeah, or immediately, because you're gonna, I mean, as soon as possible, maybe as soon as, oh my gosh, I took a nap. Oh my God, I gotta call them. But immediately says you better have your phone ready at the ready.
And if you couldn't reach Bev, you could reach Adrian. And if you couldn't reach Adrian, you could reach Jay or Andrea, just so that somebody on the board is aware of it and can pass it on from there.
Right.
We're not hard to reach.
I'm with Matthew on this one. I would only recommend that we leave 24 hours in there, but I would take out chair, and that way, like it frees it up to contact any board member that would then be hopefully would feel the obligation to pass it around to the rest of the board.
And
It's because the superintendent's.
I don't want that responsibility.
Well,
Yep.
I mean, we do take on a responsibility with this position.
No, well,
Well, I know that, but that's not part of it. I think the chair, the chair or the vice chair. But I don't think that it should be up to just any board member.
Matthew, where are you at with that?
but the function for the board member, as I understood it, was not that the board member or the chair was going to overrule or tell the superintendent what
Right.
he or he would do, simply as a point of contact so that that person could notify the others to free up the superintendent to take care of business.
Correct.
Just a contact. She'll contact a member of the board, or if you want to say chair, that's fine. But whoever it is just needs to make one phone call. Andrea can call any one of us and say, I just don't have the time to make the other calls. Would you do it?
Bev, what do you
Well,
think?
Right.
How about chair or designate?
Yeah, I was thinking that chair or designate,
Sounds great.
because that's what we say about the superintendent or designate.
Sounds terrific.
Okay.
Matthew, I think that
Um,
should be it. is it a slash in all the language? We should be consistent. Is it,
What have we done wrong?
I don't know, is it chair or designee or is it chair dash? I don't know. We should just be consistent with all of the language. Just take a look at
I
it.
think we've used or
Yeah, I
designee for
think so too.
superintendent,
Okay.
for Ray at least, in our things to Ray. Because Ray reports to the superintendent and anybody who the chair designates would be reporting to the chair.
That's good.
I just want to throw one word of caution. I understand you're trying to put certain controls in place. I don't know if you've been burned in the past or not. That's not none of my business. But I just want to be careful how tight you squeeze things. You
Yeah,
don't
that's
want
right.
to you don't want to tie our hands as a business office or as a superintendent to the point where we can't do our job. That's all. And I'm going to leave it at that. Just a word of caution because I've been in your shoes and I've been on this side of the fence.
So
I don't-
I'd ask you, Ray, if
Yep.
24, and I was serious when I asked before, if 24 hours is too constraining, with your experience working with multiple districts, would 36 hours give you
I would
enough
say
leeway?
72 hours. Because if something's happening, the superintendent's gonna notify the board anyway. Now, I just think being restrictive to say within 12, 24, 36, 48, I would say within a reasonable time, 72 hours, 48 hours. It depends on the emergency.
And when
And-
it happens, we could all be on
Right.
vacation.
Right.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
right.
so that's why, and again, we're gonna do our job and notify you. I mean, that's
I
our
think, I
job.
think, right. Sorry, I just
Yeah.
feel like we're kind of conflating two different things here. You know, because if everyone's on vacation, like there's no one going to be transferring the money.
The transfer is not going to go through anyway unless we have to get money to a vendor to get a repair,
Right.
like a water
right. Most of,
line breaks or something like that. But then the town
Yeah.
is going to get involved anyway. I
right,
mean,
right, right.
certain- right. So
Yeah.
there are certain things that will have to take place and the board will have to be notified. That certain things the town will have to be notified. If a roof, I worked when I was in Plymouth as the board chair, the roof caved in had a massive leak and we had just replaced one portion of a roof and we had to go in and get an emergency of almost $250,000 bonded from the town to fix the rest of the
Right.
roof. So
Right.
there are certain things that I understand that you want to put certain controls in place. I just want to throw a little caution out there. Just be careful you don't make it so tight where the superintendent or the business office can't do their job. And I know it's up to the board to do whatever they feel is necessary. But that's my point of view.
Mhm.
But you're the board, so
Bev?
That's actually my point of view too. I was gonna say that. Don't make the policy. I know some board members don't trust the administration and they want to tighten things up, but I was thinking the same thing as Ray. Don't make it so tight that the superintendent and the business office people cannot do their jobs.
But
I'm with Ray on
at the same time, we don't want to make it so marshmallowy that
Right. Oh, yeah.
the
Right.
beholder. So what is a fair number?
Oh, for within 24 hours?
In lieu of
Well,
that,
Well, what about
Again-
48 hours?
or, that's fine with me.
Well,
I guess
Ray
all I
has
want
the
is a number.
experience with this.
Well,
Ray
I mean,
has
what
the
do we,
experience.
I just gotta say again, I mean, I don't understand, I mean, the transfer itself is the money to pay for the services, like, contracting services or like dealing with it, mitigation in the moment of is one thing. But then when you kind of figure out the money, it's already going to be like past the moment of the actual disaster,
the money's
whatever it
going
may
to come
be.
after the fact.
Right. So
And
like it's already going to
99%.
right. So I mean, it's not going to be like, you're in the middle of fighting a fire and you're supposed to send out an email. This is not the emergency. It's the money to cover the cost of repairing or mitigating the emergency, which
Okay,
always
so-
seems to happen after the fact.
Okay, so then I'm going to go back to why do you need within 24 hours? We're going to notify you of the emergency, but the transfer is not going to take place for a week, maybe 2 weeks later of the funds.
You know, Ray, this reminds me of a conversation we had where you said if there were an emergency, that you've instructed your people that if there's an emergency, call me in the middle of the night and I'll give you authorization for a purchase order, but don't do a purchase order without my authorization. Because you wanted to control, and I think you should have it.
We have electronic controls in place on that too, but that's another issue. I got a
Well,
cat.
why
that's
don't you
climbing
go
all
back
over
to
me.
as soon as possible?
Yeah,
I mean, it's your
Well,
call, right? I mean, you're the
well,
board.
at the end of the day, I just got, Matthew, I mean, we are operating as a committee and there's 3 voting members. And so I say, if we're kind of log jammed on it, let's have a vote of the committee members on what language we want to put in there. And then we take that draft to the board and have the board deliberate on it, and we can share that with them the debate that we've had here tonight.
May I suggest we change it to 36 hours, because if there's an emergency sometime within a day and a half, we should be able to make a phone call to tell the board chair or his or her designee.
All right.
36
I
hours.
say- I say we're paying Ray for his knowledge and his wisdom, and we should go with what he recommends.
Okay,
Would
I'm in
somebody like
favor
to
of
make a
having
motion?
some, well, I'll make a
Aside from
motion.
this, hold on, aside from this one issue on the timing, is there anything else in the document that still needs to be massaged?
Okay, I'm gonna highlight the timing thing, and I think, let's take a
Let's
skim
see.
through the rest.
Let's
Yeah.
skip through the rest and then we'll come back to that at the end. Somebody can make a motion and we will do something.
All right, so, as far as the next paragraph, this communication should promote a positive relationship, blah, blah, blah. I am 100% in agreement with Matthew on this one, not needed, not
Not
necessary.
needed. Yeah,
Get that out of there.
No objections,
None.
it's out.
that just should be a known between
It-
all of us,
It's a given, should be.
a given.
So now there's this paragraph, which actually,
It's a replication of the other one with the emergency thing.
yeah, it's not a replication, it's an intensification in the sense that it's adding a threshold. And this is what I meant by the 3 different versions of this recommended policy, is that one did not have a threshold at all, and one had this threshold and the other had a blank. So I guess that's the question is
So what did you do, Susan, when we had our security breach and we had no idea what it was going to cost? How did you handle that?
Well, we had to take care of the emergency first, and they were able to shut it down within 6 hours. So we were really dealing with the police, we were dealing with the FBI, and we were dealing with, I wasn't even thinking about the money.
Mhm.
I had to make sure we were secure. So when you have a real emergency, you have to make sure that, everybody is safe.
And
And our data was safe.
that's my feeling, is that any number we state, unless we do something silly like $300,000, there's no way of knowing whether we're going to have an $80,000 emergency
Right.
or
And-
$3,000 emergency.
All I knew was insurance covered was 100,000. We'd have to spend before insurance would kick in. And we almost did that.
That's normal too, on something like that.
Yeah.
Take out the there before designate.
What,
We
Gotcha.
have to be,
Yep, got it.
I don't think I'd put a number in there just in case.
I wouldn't either. I don't even see the necessity of this one, but again, it's the board's policy.
Well, it's an emergency conditions. I think we've already covered it with the other one, and
That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's replica. I think it is a replication.
Yep.
I don't know. Is there anything in there that we haven't said?
No,
From my personal perspective, we can do without it. I just want to be sure that we've heard whatever it was the committee wanted to communicate to us. So I asked Ian, if we were to delete that, would your fellow committee people, are there any questions they could ask of us? Why didn't you consider X, Y, or Z that we should be considering before we take that out?
To my recollection, no, but the idea of a threshold was floated as far as as far as like regular transfers, but we already got that covered with just regular transfers being a thing that comes to the board anyway. So I think we're in good shape if we just drop that
I think
paragraph.
we are too.
Yeah,
me too.
I think we got this.
Yeah, and
Nobody can say that we
Mike
don't
and
spend a
Jen,
lot of time on these things.
right, and Mike and Jen are not shy in speaking up. So if they do feel like something was not communicated thoroughly by this process, then
Okay.
I'm sure we'll discuss that.
And they'll
Okay.
get the policy ahead of time to look at
Yeah.
before we vote on it.
So
All right.
we are almost ready to vote, I think. Is there anything else we need to discuss other than that timepiece? Or are we content with this otherwise?
Can we really get it down to 2 paragraphs?
Yeah,
Jeez.
Looks
Wow.
good to me,
Yeah.
but I can't vote.
So-
Me
so
neither.
would
Oh, but
somebody
your
like to
words are guiding us. Yeah.
No,
We
Ian
this-
just
or
need to
Andrea,
know what
would-
to do
would
if it
either
does
of
get
you-
approved.
Would either of you like to make a motion and put in
Oh,
whatever?
you know what? I'm sorry. I did need to, one thing I did have a note here about is line item and budget function, like getting our terminology consistent with what we normally, how we discuss our budget. Categories and amendments is not language that we normally use in our board.
function object code.
Function and object code.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Between budget function and object.
Slash object code. Actually, it's mostly between functions because
It's
the
really
object code is
functions
part
because
of,
the object codes we can move around.
yeah, the object codes are beneath the function. So
So
you
just
want to
say
go at the higher
functions.
level functions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And again, so this actually kind of dovetails, if I could just do a quick sidebar there, Matthew. This dovetails into the 3200
Yes, it
conversation, because initially the drafts that got passed out of the Budget Procedure Committee, the 3200 was, one was written for budget function codes and the other was written for more like the object code level of stuff.
So could we move on this one? It's already almost 7:30 and I would
Yeah.
like to do more than one. So could we just make that functions and delete and object codes? And if either Ian or and Andrea would like to make a motion taking into account what it is you want to be in with this,
I think they're just called functions.
just
They are.
functions.
Let's just take out that 36 hours.
You want to make that as a motion?
I move we delete, go ahead.
Well, I was going to make a move that we leave it in.
Well, I don't care. One of you make a motion and we'll take a vote.
I
and
think
see
all
what
you
happens.
need is consensus.
Yeah,
We're
Well-
going to take a vote, Susan.
I move that we delete within 36 hours from the language of the second paragraph.
Do I hear a second?
I'm torn. I'll second for discussion's sake, I guess, just to get on with it.
Yeah. Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
what do we need to discuss?
Uh,
Motion has been made and seconded.
Not much. I'm going to say I'm going to vote against that. I want to leave the 36 hours in there.
Okay.
And that may be up for debate with the rest of the board as far as the actual time frame. But I agree with Matthew's initial discussion on this, where I think having some kind of time frame set as the expectation is good. Now how long is reasonable is debatable, but I think to have something firm there is is beneficial.
Any further discussion?
All I say is what I said, they hung up. All I say is what I said before, and I think that we should listen to Ray in particularly in light of his experience and his wisdom and his knowledge.
You're making me feel old, Andrea.
Oh, honey, baby, I got you beat.
Okay, any additional conversation? All those in favor of the motion to recommend to the full board that we adopt P 3160?
No, hold
Having-
on a second. I thought we were just talking about the 36-hour language right now.
Well, she made a motion to adopt without 36 hours, and I'm going to try to
Oh.
phrase that way.
Okay,
All
I
those
heard it
in-
differently.
All those
Thank
in favor of passing P 3160 as on the screen, but with the deletion of the words within 36 hours, please indicate your support by voting aye.
Aye.
All those who do not want to delete the within 36 hours, please indicate by saying no.
No.
Okay, so it was 1, 2, and 0. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass P 3160 as amended, including the within 36 hours language.
Is there a second? I'll second it. So it will be Thomas Schulman to motion to as amended. Did I say that right? All those supportive of voting this document with the language within 36 hours, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed, nay.
Okay, we have 2 in favor, 1 opposed, 0 abstain. The P 3160 will be going to the full board for their consideration. And I would encourage Andrea to really feel free to share your feelings with the full board. I know you would anyway, but I want to invite it.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we go, do you have the stomach at 7:17? I will defer to the judgment of the participants whether we want to try to go on and do at least one more.
I'm okay with it.
Ian?
Yeah, I'm good with that too. Because I think
Susan.
3200 might go
Yeah,
real
we
fast.
would go to 3200. Susan, can you tolerate a little more?
I'm here. I'm
Okay.
here for you.
Thank you. Okay, we are now looking at P 3320. We're looking at the version that says business purchasing with the word procedures in red, that's barred. That's the latest version that we have. Could you put that up on the screen?
Yep, stand by. Yeah, so there's just the 2 short green paragraphs and then the rest red bars. That one.
We'll put it up and I'll know.
Are we talking
right.
3320 or 3200?
3320, wait,
Oh, no, sorry, 3200. That numerically, that'd be the next one up.
where am
That
That
is
one
the
says
shortest
I?
one.
Okay, I'm sorry, I put it under the wrong paper clip. My bad.
Messing with our mind, you know that.
That's okay. Well, a mind is a terrible thing to mess with. I lost mine. all the time.
I don't have much left, Matt. Come on.
We'll go out and have a beer afterwards.
And this
Okay.
one is just the very same 2 paragraphs as the Cape. But then there was the other one too.
So, it will come up on here and I'm questioning the need for this entire policy, so I don't know if who wants to start. But to me, this is not a policy, but a statement of existing practice. And so I asked myself the question, what is this policy instructing administration to do? And I don't have an answer for that. So do other people want to comment, or do I ask Susan, what do you see this two-sentence policy telling you to do?
Same thing we're doing now.
Not much except for information about the food service.
That actually goes directly to the food service program.
Yeah, it doesn't
The only
even
thing
go
we
right.
do is we deposit the checks for
Right.
them and reconcile their accounts.
So
I don't know that we need this policy.
that was my feeling. I thought we could dispose of this pretty quickly. Bev, what do you think?
I don't have an opinion on this one. Thank
Uh,
you for allowing me to speak though, Matthew, even though I'm not part of the committee.
Oh, well, you are an ad hoc member of this committee.
Yeah, and as much as
Um,
Ray objects, I respect your wisdom too. I
so
mean,
yeah, I
not,
don't know.
This
No, I-
policy is basically what happens in most every town. The money comes in and it goes directly to the town for the most part. And even if we do receive the check, 99% of the time it's either deposited in a activities fund or a grant, which is handled by the town. It goes to Fund 1 or Fund 3.
Which is not
So-
a policy, that's just a practice. And to me, the operative stuff are the verbs. Listen to this. Blah, 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 are usually made. Blah, 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 are addressed to. There's nothing that we're asking the administration to do.
Matthew, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay, so on this sheet, you see it? So on the top, it says, income introduction, but the red that was all stricken says transfer of funds between categories. So how do we get from the red to income? I don't understand that.
Well, I
And
could
then on
speak to
the
that,
people
Matthew.
We don't need this policy because where did it? I mean, why do we have this policy?
I think the
I
person
can
to ask
speak
for
to that,
that,
Matthew.
I think is the person to ask for that, it'd be Ian, because whatever it was came to us in a different form initially, which is the blue form, which was 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 paragraphs. And that was what the committee said. So we've worked that down to 2 paragraphs.
But the blue form says transfer of funds between budget categories.
And that's
Didn't
the
we
one we
just-
just did.
All
Yeah,
right, so
that's
if
the
I
one
if
we
if
just
if
did.
I could if I could just
Hold tight.
speak on it, I could explain it.
Go for it,
Okay. So
if it can be explained.
right, so basically the what you see in the red ink is the old 3200 that the Board of Education has on the books. In reviewing this as a budget procedure committee, we read that transfer of funds between categories as to mean basically like equal to object codes. And so I saw 3160 and 3200 as sort of 2 parallel policies. One meant to deal with function codes, and the other meant to deal with object codes. So yes, they are very similar. And that's why the blue ink 3200 reads very much like the blue ink 3160. And I'm not sure how it happened, but I think at one point I did have a version of this that said 3200 transfer of funds between object codes, but that got
But
lost in
I
the
don't know
shuffle
that
somewhere.
that was misnamed because Cade absolutely has it as
It's
income.
categories.
No,
Right. Well,
The K
so
policy says-
here's the thing: is I think at some point in the past, how many ever years since 1990 was when the current board policy was written. The current 3200 was written in 1990. So sometime in the past, 25, 35 years,
36.
CABE reclassified their recommended policies. So when the CABE budget, when the recommended policies were pulled from the CABE manual, they pulled up this one. It had to do with income because that's the new classification code. Whereas I think back in 1990, they had one that was, they called it transfer of funds between categories. And the way I read it and my other committee members read it, it seemed to be talking about object codes because it said objects of expenditure. So that's what we attempted to do with the draft, the blue ink draft of 3200 was to draft an object code level policy that was essentially a parallel to the one that to the 3160 that exists on function code level. Does that make sense?
But the
As
logic,
far as
Good
like,
the
explanation.
logic of the process makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
here's where I'm lost. If we're, if it's the feeling of of your subcommittee that we need to do something in parallel to 3160 for object codes, I do not feel up to wrestling with that for the next 2 or 3 hours tonight.
I'll be
And
And I want to
retired by
know
then.
if that's, I mean, is that the law, Ray? That
No,
object codes are treated the same way
function
as
code is
function?
the transfer requirement.
Yeah, so object codes aren't required.
Object
for that.
code, you'd shut your business office down.
so I have a proposal to kind of maybe, and what I'd like to do is I don't know. I mean,
Would you like to meet
basically,
with your two committee people and see if you guys can thrash out what you want us to look at?
I mean,
well,
I just don't know that it's the law, though. I don't know that
I think it's
if,
something that we
Ray
could
is
just,
saying it's going to shut down the business office, I can't have that. I have half a business office.
And if that's the case, I'll absolutely support you, Susan. I just want to be sure that we're understanding what this committee that works so hard is actually.
I would
doing.
I would be glad to take the opportunity that Matthew is offering, especially since, but it would take the approval of the chair since the reconstituted budget procedure committee had a very specific charge as far as working with the budget book format layout. With her permission, I'd be fine to have this go back to them. With my intended goal is just to kind of check in with them on this one policy, the 3200, the old one, which seemed intended to go for object codes, see if that's the thing that they were intending to do when we did it the first time, which my memory was that, yeah, we were looking at that. Share with them, raise concerns, Susan's concerns, and see what they want to do with it. Chances are we could just like not advance it back out of committee. That would be a viable outcome because I think the major concerns have been addressed with the 3160.
I do
But
too.
just for the sake of good procedure, I think it would be prudent to just send it, we're going to be meeting sometime in the near future anyway to start the budget book format discussion. We could easily carve out 10 or 15 minutes of our meeting to revisit 3200 situation and handle it on the committee level. And that may be the last you hear of it, or there may be some communication. But either way, I don't want to take up any more time on the policy committee with this, given the overall context of the situation.
Bev, what do you think?
I think this went to policy and you all should deal with it. And then once you deal with it and it comes to the full board, those individuals will have a chance to say whatever they want to say.
I'm comfortable with that. What about you and Andrea and Ian? Would you comfortable with Bev's advice?
I
Um,
couldn't, sorry, Ian, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I was just gonna say, if I understand correctly, Bev, you're saying just put this 3,200 as is to the full board for us all to discuss, and then we can have that discussion about the object code stuff as a full board, and maybe put it down to rest there.
No, I'm
Is that
saying,
what-
this 3,200's in policy right now. So you all in policy figure it out. If you want to send it the way it is to the full board, then like we always do, the full board will review it and make suggestions. That's
Well,
what I'm,
and I'd like to be able to do a little research, like if the 3,200 in CABE is no longer or never should have been a transfer of funds between budget categories, and it's always meant to be this income or business non-instructional operations, and we don't seem to think that that really is necessary, but maybe we need to do a little more research on that. And then is there a policy in CABE that talks about any legal ramifications about moving money within object codes?
Okay.
If it's,
So
you
so
know,
with
I
that,
just feel like if that would help us,
Yep.
if we had a little more information.
so Matthew, how about this as a solution? We could postpone the 3,200 to the next policy committee meeting and give me like about 3 or 4 weeks to do some research, and Susan and whoever you want to have do research on
Yeah,
your end.
Erica helps us out a lot too. She can
Yeah.
help. Mhm.
I
So
think
we
that,
and
okay. to
and I
make a
could coordinate
motion-
with Erica as well to kind of
Mhm.
make sure we're all looking at
Make
the
a
same
motion.
resources.
Make a motion to report this to the next meeting for further action.
All right, I'll move that we postpone 3,200 discussion to the next regular policy committee meeting.
Do I hear a second to that?
Second.
All those,
Second.
any conversation before we vote on this? All those in favor of postponing discussion on 32P, 3,200 till the April meeting, vote aye, please. And if you're in
Aye.
favor of it, we
Aye.
pass that 3-0 to 0 to April meeting. And if you, in your research, either from administration or Ian, with your informal conversations with your other colleagues on that committee, want to suggest some alternative language that we could look at next meeting, that would be fine too. It's now 7:30. We actually got one done, guys. This is good. We should be
Yes.
done with these business ones by August or September.
That'll be good.
We will get them done even sooner than that. I have
Okay.
faith.
Well,
So the-
actually, I got I think possibly good news because I'm looking at the 3310 and 3320. The 3310 is the purchasing guidelines. The 3320, again, I think something got lost in translation at some point. Or that was the time. Anyway, 3320 was supposed to be drafted as a regulation to support the 3310.
I was wondering about that. It did look like
Yeah.
procedural.
Yeah.
But what came through was radically reduced as to what was drafted. So okay, I see. Wait a minute, I see what's going on here. Okay. Yeah, so this is where Erica did a lot of work for us, and it's very much appreciated. So shall I project the 3310 that is Erica's edit? It looks like, based on our conversations.
I'm going to interrupt you. It's 7:34. I'm going to
Oh.
ask once again the will of the people who are in attendance.
Say good night, Grace.
Andrea and I are still in our teens. We're good for an all-nighter, but the rest of you, we've got to
Yeah.
be respectful.
I'm good to go. Well, one, I was going to say that 3320 we could probably just shift into regulation, and like so we might be able to just kind of dispense with that. But like, let's focus fully on trying to close out 3310.
I thought we voted to say good night, Gracie.
Oh, sorry.
If that's, I am at if you're had enough, Andrea, we'll hold it till next meeting unless you guys are gluttons for punishment and want a special meeting before, sometime before the April meeting. Whatever you want is what I'm willing to do.
April.
April. Ian, you have any problem with that?
No, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with
Wonderful.
that.
Well, would you find Gracie for us then? First of all, I want to thank everybody, particularly Ray. I am disappointed, Ray, you didn't bring any snacks for us.
No,
Susan
it's me who
also-
brings you the
I
snacks,
was just
Matthew.
said, Susan does. So you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, Bev, for having come.
Did we actually do the vote?
No, we haven't done a vote yet. We haven't had a motion yet. Make a motion.
Motion to adjourn, is that what you're waiting for?
That's waiting for it.
Oh, motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second, Thomas.
This is a non-debatable motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. What a team. Thank you so much, everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you, Ray.
Right.
You're welcome.
Bye.